Mm-mm-mm. You-ba-do-ba-do-ba-do. Do-ba-do-do-do. Do-ba-do-ba-do-ba-do. Mm-hmm. Hi, everybody. All right. Let's try this one more time. Super excited to try to bring on Philip Atiba Goff. And Phil, please correct me if I said your name wrong. I hope I didn't. He is the CEO and co-founder of Center for Policing Equity. It is an initiative that fights against police brutality using a pragmatic approach and a data-driven approach. And they work with police around the country. They're an incredible initiative. Phil is, from what I've heard, an incredible human being as well as an incredible mind, and an incredible executioner is not the word because it means you kill people, but somebody he's very action oriented. Anyway, let's bring him up. It's laughable at this point though, because of the thousands of people on. Guys, you're gonna laugh at this. It's incredible. The intolerance. Me, I'm heartbroken. I'm humiliated. And it's sad. But it's not working for the fourth time. It's all good. I love you guys so much. Hello, Peru. What are you guys doing? Brazil. Canada in the building. What's poppin', Canada? Say wow, wow, wow. Wow, 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 wow. Oh, wait, you meant whoa, 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 whoa. Do that too. Let's see now. Try it one more time. And on that last moment. Oh! Oh!
Look at that. Don't ever give up on your dreams, people. Don't do it. Don't ever give up. See? See, you thought that it was over.
Oh, I
Right?
thought for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I knew it was over, and that was the exact moment. But you know what? That is so like on par with the whole like, if you want it, release it. It'll come back, you know?
Sure. Also, you gotta, fight through the blood and the mud to get there, right? Like I feel like my ancestors had to go through way, way worse than faulty Instagram. And now look at us. Here we are. Finally together.
And now there's actually like, I have a sense of accomplishment that I never would have felt before.
That's exactly right. Like this was gonna be a cool thing, but now we have overcome. I feel like I need to be singing spirituals, man.
Vocals for it. Oh my God. Yo, Phil, it is so nice talking with you, man.
I'm really glad to finally be here.
Yeah, man. First and foremost, how are you, man?
I feel a little bit like shit on a Triscuit. The last month has been just absolutely bananas. Like normally I'm just your average everyday professional nerd. And I work on incredibly difficult topics with nobody paying attention. And then you have this moment where you're like, good, I'm glad that people are paying attention. And then you're like, but wait, that means they're paying attention to me. So there will be no sleep and there will be no regular meals and bathing becomes optional all of a sudden. I showered for everybody today, but everybody who works on this stuff has not slept since Memorial Day. So I'm very glad that I have also on my phone, my godchildren are talking about, you are talking to the internet's boyfriend, so you better come correct and be ready.
Day. It's incredible to hear, because I'm sure your work already is so heavy and has so much time, but like, how do you find time, or do you really find time to take care of Phil while also maintaining this operation that you run, or have you really kind of decided for an operation?
Yeah, no, I mean, I should have a better answer. I should be able to say, here's the ways that you carve out time. Um, but I'm not really built well for that. I will carve out time. I'm a person who carves out time for other people. And the best thing ever in my life is my wife. So she needs time, she needs attention, she needs me to do cooking and pick stuff up and to be quiet. So I do that stuff. And she needs me to spend a kind of time with her. So thank God I'm able to do that. And that is also time for me. So I do the secret to any healthy relationship, any good relationship that will last a long time is do what you're told. So I'm doing what I'm told. And it turns out she also tells me to eat and sleep and crap in the right places. So that's the best I'm able to do for myself.
No, that no, and listen, man, the fact that you have a support system, you know, on that is everything. So that's a term that I hear. Um, well, I'm happy you're here. I'm happy you showered, and I can't really smell nothing through the phone. I just want to preface this, guys. Anyone who donates on this forum, the money you donate goes directly to Phil's initiative, the Center for Equity. If you're having trouble donating because you're in another country, click the link in my bio. Go to the website. You can donate directly to our website, or you just go to policingequity.org and you can donate directly there. You get more resources as well. So, first question that I have, Phil, is just, you know, I know that this policing equity is, you know, a pragmatic approach towards the fight in police brutality. It's a simple approach, data driven. But from your mouth, what is the Center for Policing Equity? What is it that?
Yeah, so I mean, it is really straightforward. We take the controversial stance that we want less death and less racism, right? So we work inside of the police department. It may be surprising for folks to know, but like they literally they call us and they say we think we might have a problem. We work with them and then we bring community together and say let's use the data to see where the police department is responsible for the bad sets of outcomes. And it turns out the data can really be helpful because if you do just the finger pointing, then that's not useful. But the data can tell you, all right, it's these officers, it's this neighborhood, it's foot pursuits over there, it's the homelessness problem over there. And then when they use the data, they start acting better, right? So the way I try to explain to everybody, anything in your life that you care about, right, like your significant other or your grades or whatever, you're keeping track of how many times they're calling, how long before they call you back, what the grades look like, all that. We can do that for justice and policing, and we literally haven't done that. So we're the folks who measure justice. We give it back to communities so that they can hold police accountable.
Wow. And you do only work with police departments that reach out to you? Do you have a system where you also go to police departments?
Yeah, so occasionally we'll go reach out to them if it's obvious that they might could use a little help. But we're like vampires. We have to be invited in before we can do our mischief, right? And the reason is because if you sue a police department, I mean, y'all have seen it, they don't give up the data even when they're forced to give up the data. And since there's 18,000 law enforcement agencies in the US, like, it's not worth our time. We go in where we're asked to, and we got a backlog full of departments that are waiting for it.
Wow. So, and one of those recently occurred was the Minneapolis Police Department, right? You guys are actually working, and that's where George Floyd was murdered by police brutality. So, can you talk a little bit about that relationship with them? Because they've also abolished their police.
They're in the process. Yeah, they're in the process of disbanding their department, which, I mean, for anybody who's following the news, that's going to be a story for the next year plus. So yeah, we've been there for the last, we started in 2016, we went through 2018, and then we like one-off gave them bits and pieces. They were able to reduce their use of force by 18% during the 3 years that we were there. That's good news.
Right.
What they weren't able to do is to get everybody who didn't believe in those changes out. So imagine that you've got a team, right, like a sports team or whatever kind of team, you got a clique, and you got 100 people in your clique. And 80 of them are on board with what you're trying to do, and you're trying to make it better. And 20 of them are like, you can't touch us. You can't kick us out. There's nothing you can do. Like, just deuces, we're going to do what we need to do. Mm-hmm. That's what we had in Minneapolis. And that 20%, that becomes the problem, right? And because we don't give chiefs the ability to fire folks and we don't get to hold them accountable, they end up literally staring at a camera while they watch the life drain out of somebody.
So are you still working with the Minneapolis department?
Yeah, we still are. I still text and have calls with the chief, Chief Rondo, a couple times a week. We work with the line officers. I got to say, just like every group, there it's a diversity of folks. I got line officers that call and are crying because they see their profession and all they work for and how awful it is. And we see officers that say, "Hey, it was no thing. George Floyd deserved what he got." We see the good and the bad, the awful, and what we try and do is stand up with science to make the good better and the awful history.
Wow. I mean, I just, a moment for that. Such a, almost mind-boggling to a lot of people that watch die is kind of like a line that none of us would walk past, be able to watch that happen, feel like nothing is such an intense place to be human. Data wise, I mean, and this kind of goes outside of maybe of what Center Police Deputy does, but do you have any data for how you can slowly maybe how to shift that 20%? There's 100 people, 80 or 20 are like, no, we want to keep it the way it is. Do you have any data points on how you can actually work to convert that 20% over to the side of, all right, how do we use less support?
Yeah, so I mean, there's this rule. There's like the 10-80-10 rule. So like 10% of any organization is the best ever, 10% of the worst ever, and everybody else is just in the middle. And
Mm,
what we're able to do with the data is we say, all right, so the places where there's a problem. So I use Las Vegas as an example. We worked in Las Vegas for a while. You ever get a chance to work with Las Vegas and have a police escort? Go ahead, because that's dope. So we worked in Las Vegas. They were beating people up too much, and it was disproportionately too much of it was happening after a foot pursuit. Somebody was running after somebody else. And the reason is your heart rate's up, your adrenaline's up, and you know if they're running from you, they must be bad. At least if you're an officer, you're thinking that way. So you're beating them the hell up when you catch up to them, even if they're like, hey, I'm so sorry I ran, please don't hurt me. So in that situation, all we got to do is say, slow down, take a breath. And in Las Vegas, when we gave new trainings there, they reduced their use of force by 23% the following year. Almost 1 in every 4 gone, right? That is amazing. It's also too slow.
right.
So what happened in Minneapolis was it's 18%. It's like 1 in 5 gone. That's good. It's not enough. So what we're
Right.
seeing right now is people saying, great, the data, that's fantastic. The incremental, that's fantastic. I'm tired of waiting,
Right.
right? We got to do something bigger than that. And that's what's coming next is defunding, shifting resources, changing the way we think about policing so we got more options in the communities that are really rough than just you got to call the police for absolutely everything.
Can you do me a favor? Because you said, and can you do me a favor and kind of break down what defunding is? It's a huge conversation now. I think a lot of people are not, they're like, get rid of the police. That's crazy. Can you break down defunding the versus abolishing the police and what it look like?
Yeah, and so it'd be a lot easier if everybody meant the same thing when they said it, but they don't, right? So some people mean exactly, they mean abolish. That means no more police, get rid of it. The people can handle all violence, right? And that's one extreme version of it, right? But what most black communities are calling for, what most activists I talk to are calling for, is not fully abolishing. Some are, but most are saying we invest so much money in police, and police respond to mental health, they respond to substance abuse, they respond to domestic disputes, they respond to like job crisis training. We don't put any of that money into the communities so that they have the resources so they don't have to call the police in the first place, right? How on earth can you expect for a community to be safe if the only option they have is call the police, right? And when police are supposed to be doing what nurses do, what drug counselors do, what school psychologists do, who the heck is good at all that stuff, right? John Legend, maybe, but like nobody else is good at all of those things. So instead, just you call 911, and instead of just fire, ambulance, and police, you also have social workers and substance abuse and suicide prevention, all of that. That's what defunding police means for most people, taking money out of punishment and putting into empowerment.
Wow, because first that's and thank you for down because stuff that my sound does. Thank you for breaking it down because when I first heard the term defund the police, sounds like deficit. Sounds like you're taking away from a public safety mechanism, which I also understand. Some people view the police as the opposite of a public safety mechanism, right? They're dangerous. But you know, but now after hearing you say that, it's more of like defund the police is really let's reallocate funds to add features to communities. So you're not
That's right.
taking away anything. You're adding features to a community that actually ultimately would like take stress away from the police.
So that's exactly it. And the thing that to me is so disappointing about the way we're talking about it right now, it's as if we're saying, well, there's defund on one side, and then there's more police on the other. I worked with chiefs for the last dozen years. I have never met with a chief who thought it was a good idea to respond to someone who is concerned about killing themselves with a badge and a gun. I have never worked with any police chief who's like, you know, the best solution to a drug abuse situation is to send somebody whose job is to use force. They don't want that job. They have never wanted that job. It's because the communities have nothing else there that they have to go and do that job. So the protesters and the police frequently want the same damn thing. And if we would talk to them directly instead of talking about them so much, then we would see there's not as much division in this as we like to frame it.
Wow. No, thank you for that. And abolishing the police. Can you kind of go into what that looks like? Because Minneapolis is working towards not defunding, but abolishing, correct?
So it's not really clear what Minneapolis is trying to do. Minneapolis doesn't even know what Minneapolis is trying to do. The announcement is they're going to disband. And what that means is they're going to fire all the officers and then probably put some officers back together, but in a different department. Okay? So it's basically like, all right, end it and start over again. Right?
With the same people.
With some of the same people and with new people, right? Like I can hire all new folks, but I'm going to start again from scratch. Abolition is a different thing. What abolition means is I'm going to be deciding that police as we know it are not going to exist. So instead of having a police department, what you'll have is a violence response department, a suicide response department, but nothing called police. There are a lot of activists who are asking for that. And if you think that that's scary, I understand. I don't know that I'm in favor of that either, but I'll say this. I don't know exactly where you live. It looks like you've got good lighting behind you. I don't know. Maybe that's just actors get to have that. But in places where I have friends, there's this magical thing that happens where if I have to deal with substance abuse, I can call a clinician. And if I have to go to the hospital, there's one right there. If I need fresh vegetables, I got a grocery store next door. If I need a counselor for anything I need, I can call that. This place, I don't know if you've heard of it, it's called the Suburbs. And when you go there, you don't need police for nearly as much. You got to cat up a tree, maybe. Somebody got to get across the street, maybe. But you don't need police for the same set of things. I'm not saying that abolition is the answer, but it is not some fringe idea. We already basically have that in communities that have money.
Right. And there's almost like a private security, if anything, that replaces the police in those communities.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Wow. So what do you think is, the best path forward? Like where do we go from here? I know you talked, a lot of people are looking for a silver bullet. A lot of people, and Rashad from
Color of Change. Yeah.
Color of Change, right, says there is no silver bullet,
Right.
but what do you think the path forward is?
So I think it's
for
real
lasting
important.
change.
Yeah, I think it's real important for folks to hear the people who've been doing this since forever say out loud, I don't know. I don't know what the path is going to be. I do know that for anybody for whom this is like the first time they're seeing this, it's important to understand we did this 6 years ago in Ferguson, but we also did it 30 years ago in LA, and we did it 30 years before that in Newark, and 30 years before that in Chicago, and 30 years before that, and 30 years before that. Almost every 30 years since we had emancipation in this country, police kill or hurt or maim somebody, and then cities blow up, and then usually there's presidential connection to that. There's a presidential response, and we put something together that is around the edges, and then we all forget. So the number one thing I would say is first, learn that history, and second, do whatever work you got to do so that you're not going to forget. So that 2 weeks from now, when no one is talking about policing, that you're still learning about, all right, whose job is it to fire or hire the chief where you live? I mean, who's the chief where you live? right? I mean, when's the next time the union contract is going to come up? How do you book a ride along? Right? Who else is doing community reform, police reform in your city? This is happening in your city, wherever it is that you live. You live in Montana or Alaska or Puerto Rico. I see folks from India and Ireland. It's happening everywhere human beings live. This is not just a US thing. Learn who is doing this work, learn how you can learn more, and stay involved. Because the worst thing that can happen to the moment we've got right now is people just lose attention for it because there's some guy painted orange in DC who gets real excitable, and everybody all of a sudden has to pay attention to him.
Right. Or the next viral video goes, you know, the next meme sensation hits. Because it really feels like this is the solution. You know, and that's a weird word, but because there's not a solution, but the way forward is walking the path and continuing to walk the path. This is not something. My buddy Jeff Walker said that you know, the fight against racism is not a race; it's a marathon, right? Mm-hmm. And it's a lifetime. Truly, it's a marathon that's going to take place over the course of your life, my life, and our kids and grandkids' life, mm-hmm. and on and on and on and on until we can refine so far, and. So you said, learn the history, learn how you can get involved in your city, locally, figure out who hires the police chiefs, who the DA is, or all of these things. Get involved. Would you say voting, because the Florida Rights Restoration Coalition, they talk about voting up. Desmond talks about voting up, not just down, which for those who are listening, voting up means voting locally in your city first, and then all the way up the ballot to the presidential primary, as opposed to just voting for the president and then letting everything else kind of trickle down. So besides these things that people can do, learning about their local, you know, educating themselves on what's happening here, what can somebody do right now that doesn't have money? Is that just educating themselves, getting more resources? Because donation is one thing, but what is someone who maybe doesn't have the money that can do?
For sure, if you have the ability, if you are of age to vote, we just did it in New York, right? Like, this isn't an old sticker. I put this on today. It helps because while police chiefs are appointed, sheriffs are elected by and large across the United States. You can vote for progressive sheriffs, for a sheriff that will change a sheriff's department right now. You can do that every year, right? And most folks, like, you don't know who your DA is, if you don't know who your sheriff is, you can just fix that, Google that today. Right? 1,000%. So, I mean, for sure, there is that. But the other piece is a lot of these just come from understanding what the boring process is, right? I keep telling people, it's not Game of Thrones, it's Parks and Rec, right? It's like, it's local government. And if you knew when the collective bargaining agreement, that's the contract that people have with their police departments, with their unions, if you knew when that was up, it doesn't matter how old you are, you as someone who lives here, you don't even have to be a citizen. Just as you can show up to public comment and you can make your voice heard. You can say, like, if I asked you, is it okay to just shred police records after 2 years, no matter how bad they are? Because that's something you would be in favor of?
No.
Yeah, but do you live in California though, right?
Yeah, I do. I'm a resident of California.
In your state, that's the law because of the union contract, right? Every police record, if you got a complaint against you, right? Doesn't matter if they finished investigating it. It has to be shredded after 2 years because the union contract says that's our Bill of Rights. Once after 2 years, it's got to be gone. But nobody thinks that's a good idea. If the people of California knew that was happening, they would show up.
That's the thing. Nobody in California knows that's happening. And that's the thing. It's like this like silent ignorance that is consuming all of us. It's this unconscious, like, asymmetrical knowledge. You don't know, so you can't help because you don't know that you should help to get involved with the thing in the first place.
So baby steps. Like, the first thing is find out. If you want to know who's in charge, that's first. Who's your chief? Who can fire and hire them, right? Who's in charge of your union? Is there a civilian review board? Those things. How do you track this information? Well, most departments have to put their policies online. Some put their data online, and then find out, when is the union contract up? Because then you can show up. And then how do you get involved? You can get involved by showing up for public comment. You know, you can call. You don't have to call the police whenever there's a crisis. Just call and be like, hey, when's the next time I can show up for public comment? Find out when you can go on a ride along. It's not just a Kevin Hart movie, right? You can actually ride along in a police car and see what their life is like. That job is hard. And also, you might not agree with everything. But then the most important thing, who is working where you are? Get to know those folks. What are they working for? And if you don't like it, do your own work. That's the stuff that you can do right now. That's the education you can give yourself. That's the way to step in and get involved. Because it's not like George Floyd, sadly, is going to be the last one. We're going to see more. And the next time, when you didn't do the work to find out, then you only have to be able to look at yourself.
Right, because now that you know, now that I'm sitting here with you, talking with you, I'm responsible to do my part to learn and to take action, like everyone else. And I think, Phil, that's a big thing for the younger generation is we feel apathetic to the system. We're told that it doesn't matter who you vote, it doesn't matter what the popular vote says, right? The Electoral College is going to choose the president. We hear that and we go, oh, we don't even think about local elections, finding out who our sheriff is, who the DA is. We don't even think about going in and letting our voice be heard in our local government because we don't even feel that it works on the federal level. But I think this is the type of conversation that needs to happen more because it's truly ignorance, and not ignorance in like you're an idiot or whatever way that we're idiots. It's just we truly don't know. So like a naivety.
And the other thing is that on the federal level, it feels so big. There's 232 million, 323 million people in the United States, right? A lot of millions of people, hundreds of millions of people. I'm sorry, I'm a stats guy. It's the second one. But in a local race, 200 people, that's the difference between winning and losing, right? For sheriff, because nobody votes for the sheriff. So in a large city, it could be 300 people, and that feels like a landslide. So you can actually make a difference if you bring your D&D club or your dance party crew, right? If the folks who Facebook Live, watching your favorite shows show up, that's like half the margin of victory. Wow. So on the local level, you really can make a difference. You just got to know who they are, what they stand for, and get involved. And for many folks, like if you're over 18 in many places, it could be you, right? Get to know it, and then you could run. Because like there are 30-something-year-old mayors in this city, like Michael Tubbs in Stockton, California, who's saying, you know what? We need universal income because all of the ways in which corporations mess us up are a problem. And the only deal is he was young enough to try it, and all of a sudden, Stockton is going from one of the worst cities in California to Midland and on its way to being one of the best. So it really is possible. We just hear all the time that it's just division, it's just disagreement, and it's too big to solve. It's not too big to solve.
Right. It's a question of if you want to research and educate. And I think I really appreciate this conversation with Phil. I know you have to go in about 2 minutes, so I want to be careful with your time. But I think if there's one thing that I personally taken away from this, it's that to not listen. I mean, there is divisiveness and there is separateness, but the true thing is, if you take the time to learn locally what it is that you can do, you can enact huge change in your community. And then ultimately, if enough people do that in their communities, we could actually really change the way this country operates. And I think so many people are overwhelmed by the entire problem that they don't even think that literally doing an hour or two of research on the computer and then showing up somewhere is this a part of the solution for them, their personal solution.
I have been in cities where 20 people showing up to a meeting was the difference between a policy getting enacted and not. 20 people, right? And they don't have to be voting age. They just need to show up.
You don't even have to be 18.
No, you don't. Just show up, right? Get on the mic, right? I have seen 13-year-old girls get on the mic and say, I think it's bad when you beat people up because they're poor. You know what? I don't know any adult who's going to make a stronger statement than that, right? 20 people can make a difference where you live. And even if you live in a big city, they still don't show up to those public comments. Just you showing up makes a difference. It absolutely can make a difference.
That's incredible, man. I couldn't think of a better way to end on that note. Dude, thank you so much for taking the time to come and talk to me and to educate me and everyone else who's listening. I really appreciate it.
No, man, thank you for the perseverance. That was a half hour of a long journey to get here.
But we made it. Can we have the choir sing yet?
We're gonna do that next time. Next time you're on, it's gonna be you, me, and the choir behind us. All right.
All right, deal. Have a great day, man. Thank you
All right.
so
You
much.
too, man.
All right.
Be good.
Wow. So wild. So wild. Thanks for listening. I'm going to be posting this on IGTV. If you guys want to rewatch, I'm going to be taking sound bites. He gave us so much information. I'm going to go back. We'll take notes. We'll release it. We'll forge a path forward together. It's really, really incredible when you take the time to sit down and listen to someone, because like he was saying, the problem is so big. It's so hard to figure out what you can do. But when you really take the time and listen to an expert, sometimes that pathway just flushes out and it reveals itself. So thanks for watching, you guys, and dealing with my stuttering and bad volume. I love you all so much. To the 39 people that donated, I appreciate your financial support. To those that are listening, I appreciate your willingness to listen and to be educated. This is not just a problem in America. It's a global issue, like Phil said. So I love you guys. Talk soon.